You're on.
Good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, July 27th, 2023 at 9 a.m. I'll call this meeting to the Board of Directors of the Animal Service Center in Mesilla Valley to order. If we will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. If we could get a roll call to determine quorum.
Board Member De Leon is absent. Nope, she's sneaking in. She is here. Board Member Ward.
Present.
Board Member Flores is absent. Board Member Macias.
Present.
Board Member Coran.
Present.
Board Member Shaylo Hernandez.
Present.
Board Member Gandara.
Present.
Chair Sanchez.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Excellent, and it's excellent to see Ms. De Leon. Welcome back.
Oh, hi, welcome back. Judge, you want to come closer to us? That'd be so lovely.
All right, so are there any changes to the agenda, Mr. Thacker? No? Okay. So if I can get a motion and a second to approve the agenda, please.
Move to approve, Corin. Second, Gandara.
All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda by Councillor Corrin and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. Are there any comments? Not seeing any, so if we can get a roll call, please.
Board Member Macias.
Yes.
Board Member Coran.
Yes.
Board Member Shaylo Hernandez.
Yes.
Board Member Gandara.
Yes.
Chair Sanchez.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. All right, we're on to agenda number 4, which is the reading of the closed meeting statements for June 22nd and June 29th, 2023. So the Board of Directors of the ASCMV did meet on June 22nd after our regular board meeting. At 10:25, we entered closed session with myself, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, Councillor Corrin, Councillor Flores, Yvonne Flores, Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez, County Manager Macias, and HR Director, Miss Leanne Demouche, and we ended that session at 11:30. The only things that were discussed in that session were the items that we noted in the motion to go into closed session to discuss the evaluation of the executive director. We had a subsequent meeting on June 29th, 2023, starting at 3 p.m. Those present were Councillor Corrin, Councillor Flores, Mr. Macias, Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez, Ms. Demouche. Mayor Pro Tem Gandara joined us at 3:15 p.m. and then Mr. Thacker came in at 4:07 p.m. And myself, I was there for the entirety, and the closed session ended at 4:45 p.m. Again, with this session, the only thing discussed were the items noted in the agenda for closed session, which were related to the evaluation of the executive director. So with that, then we'll move on to agenda item 5A, which is the approval of the minutes from the regular ASCMV board meeting held on June 22nd, 2023. If we can get a motion.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez. Is there a second?
Second, Gandara.
We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara on the approval of the minutes from June 22nd, 2023. Are there any changes, comments? All right, not hearing or seeing any. If we can get a roll call on the approval of the minutes from June 22nd, 2023.
Board Member Macias.
Yes.
Board Member Coran.
Yes.
Board Member Shaylo Hernandez.
Yes.
Board Member Gandara.
Yes.
Chair Sanchez.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. All right, then we're on to reports and presentations. We start off with the Coalition for Pets and People presentation by Ms. Gilbert. Good morning.
Good morning. See if I'm a little rusty. It's been a while. Okay, I'm Jean Gilbert, Secretary for the Coalition for Pets and People, and presenting our semi-annual report.
Okay, I'm just gonna make it the big screen.
And then, do I just hit that arrow? Okay.
F5. There we go.
Thanks, Bernice. Yes, so as mentioned, this is our semi-annual report covering meetings, events, and activities for January through July 2023. Okay, Coalition Chair Rick Hahn and myself, along with other community or animal advocates in the community, attended a fundraiser gala in February at La Posta that was hosted by the Doña County Humane Society. That's not pictured here, but some of the fundraisers and socials that they do hold are include Yappy Hour, like you see pictured here, showing dogs with their owners at Salute, and then coffee talk socials, which they hold at the Bean. And the Doña County Humane Society Executive Director, Sarah Kurtz, is pictured here in the sage green shirt. I'm sure you recall that they provide many services, and those include their Animal Relief Fund, which helps pets with medical needs that belong to low-income families. And their Pets for Seniors program advocates adoption of shelter pets to seniors here in our area. And then their Rough to Ready program helps with pet retention while providing free training and behavior assistance for pets that are adopted from our shelter. So they have a lot of valuable services. Coalition Chair Rick Hahn and myself met in February with Selena Cardosa, who's the director of Cruces Cool Cats, to talk with her about their services and their needs. Selena and her son Joseph, who also serves on their board of directors of Cruces Cool Cats, as you recall, gave a presentation on their programs and services at this meeting back in April. Pictured here are 2 litters of kittens that are in the process of being socialized, and they were born to feral moms. Trap, neuter, return, foster services, and adoption promotion are some of their primary programs. In April, Rick and I met with Cheryl Duran, who's director of No Pits Left Behind, to discuss the programs that are provided by her rescue organization. And in addition to No Pits Left Behind's important work providing rescue and foster care for dogs in need, the organization has been instrumental, and I'll say this as a former board member of the Humane Society of Southern New Mexico, that Sherry and her organization was instrumental in assisting HSNM with the closing out of the organization's kennels. And pictured here is Sherry holding a puppy, and then the other photos show dogs that have been adopted by the organization and others that have been rescued. And I don't know how well you can see their logo, but it's pretty cool, and it says, "You can't buy love, but you can rescue it." Pictured here is Lisa Jennings, who's the longtime director of Animal Protection New Mexico, based in Albuquerque. Rick and I, Rick Hahn, Coalition Chair, and myself, along with others in the community, attended their meeting and social on April the 20th, and that was hosted by the Animal Advocates Committee of the Unitarian Church here in Las Cruces. One of the topics covered in the meeting was Senate Bill 57, which is also known as the Affordable Spay-Neuter Bill, which was passed and signed into law by our governor in 2020 after many years of effort. And the legislation established a statewide spay-neuter funding mechanism through a pet manufacturer fee or tax. And in January 2021, the New Mexico legislature began implementing Senate Bill 57. But around that same time, there were groups that were showing opposition to the tax, and that included the Pet Food Institute and the Rio Grande Kennel Club were a couple of them that sought to overturn the implementation of the bill. And while this was pending, the New Mexico Veterinary Board, responsible for the distribution of the spay-neuter funds, was in the meantime able to collect $218,000 from the spay-neuter specialty license plate proceeds and from other sources to distribute that money within the state. Several policymakers, however, including State Representative Joanne Ferrari, were called on to help with unlocking SB 57 funds, and that hard work culminated just a couple of months ago with the New Mexico Department of Agriculture Secretary announcing the release of approximately $900,000 in spay-neuter funding. And so now we're very eager to see how some of that money is helping animals here in our county. And I'm sure we could check with SNAP, and perhaps Clint has some comment on that topic too. In June, excuse me, Rick and I met with Joanne Ferrari, and among concerns and some of the things that we talked to Joanne about is the lack of veterinarians, or how we feel that we have really lost some ground in high volume, low cost spay-neuter here. And the inability, it seems to be, to have filled the position that we're advertising here for a full-time veterinarian at our shelter. And as you remember, so these are things that we, hope we'll see some traction on. I know it's a very challenging, and there are many facets to the problem. As you remember, Joanne served as chairperson of the coalition several years ago, and she's certainly been a champion of animal welfare for decades, and that includes her work past years with Boxer Rescue. Cans for Critters, which was formerly a project of the Humane Society of Southern New Mexico, has now become a program of the coalition in January due to the phasing out of ASCMV programs and services. Pictured here is a feline who needed emergency dental work and was helped recently through Cans for Critters funds. As noted on this slide, the Cans for Critters Fund has helped approximately 350 dogs and cats since the fund was established over 12 years ago. And the fund has raised $18,090.43 from the reclamation of aluminum cans. And it involves animal advocates and representatives affiliated with really most of the rescues and animal welfare groups here, and who have donated cans. So it's clearly a community-wide project. Humane and Environmental Education is another program accepted or acquired by the coalition due to the phasing out of ASCMV programs and services. And pictured here you see Highland Elementary School kindergarten students involved in an extension activity following a story and lesson on safety around snakes and respect for desert wildlife, with emphasis on the 3 L's: look, learn, and leave alone. One of the academic aspects of this lesson included using measuring tapes to determine the length of some of the toy snakes. And of course, largely the humane education emphasis is on cats and dogs. Rick Hahn has been serving as the chair of the coalition for several years now, and some of the projects that he's been involved with representing the coalition include microchip and vaccination clinics and updating brochures such as this one, Community Cat Action Guide, which is in English and in Spanish. Working with Jackie Meineke and other cat advocates for inclusion of information on trap, neuter, return, humane cat deterrence, and the listing of organizations and agencies that are resources for cats. And the next brochure that Rick is working on is a volunteer guide for animal organizations here in Las Cruces. In addition to Coalition for Pets and People work, I've been a community cat advocate and have had a cat colony of my own in the central part of the city for nearly 5 years. Due to personal circumstances, I brought the 6 colony cats home to join my 2 house cats. And I had a catio built and an enclosure built for their accommodation. And thanks to the support of local cat advocates and organizations here, especially Broken Promises Southwest, they were able to help me catch an elusive cat. It took nearly a year, but with the use of, with Joe Mealy's expertise, and the use of a drop trap, we were able to catch this last cat. During the 5 years that I had the colony, there were about 10 cats that were TNR'd, and that included 2 kittens, and they were individual kittens that, I don't know, they just came, they showed up from out of the blue, I don't know where or how. But so there were those 2 kittens that were adopted, and then the 6 I mentioned that I brought home. And then there were a couple of others that were TNR'd, but they either disappeared or they migrated elsewhere. And during the time that we were trying to catch the one, there were a few that we ended up TNRing, and of course returning back there because I wasn't able to assimilate or take them home. So I just want to add with regards to TNR and community cat colony caretaking, I want to say that it works. And it works versus catch and kill. Because catch and kill, you remove them, and more are going to come in to take their place because cats are territorial. So I encourage our community to continue to stay on this path of what do I want to say, supporting TNR and colony cat caretaking. Okay, well that concludes the presentation. So the phone numbers listed here are Rick. Rick's phone number is listed first and mine is second. So we are resources and representatives, and we encourage people to contact us if there are any, they need help or have issues. So, okay, and thank you so much for your time and attention. I don't know if any of you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Are there any questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thanks, Jean, so much for your presentation. Appreciate it. I wanted to ask wasn't sure if you knew, and you had made mention maybe Clint would be talking about this, but on SB 57, the $900,000, do you know the process by which they're going to release the funding?
I do not.
Okay, I'm imagining RFP, but I don't know, via grants.
Clint Thacker, Executive Director. I can answer some of that question. There was a call that was done, it was about 2 weeks ago that I attended, where they are doing it as a grant process. So you put it in submissions, you request for it, and then the State Veterinarian Board is going to be reviewing those and giving or awarding as they seem fit. So if you think about it though, $900,000 sounds like a lot, but when you break it down with the need that we have down here, it's only a small drop in the bucket with that, especially when you look at what we need to do is team up with local veterinarians, and they don't really discount quite a bit their services because they still need to pay for theirs as well and make some money. So the money doesn't stretch as far as we'd like it to, but yes, it is a grant process and we will be going for those grants. I believe it is closed, it's open now and it closes, I want to say September 1st. Is the
Clint,
date, I believe.
and so do you know what the rubric is at this point? I mean, how are they determining the best written grant? Is it the highest need for spay and neuter in community? Do you know what?
I know they're looking at match grants because that will let the money go further. But after that, I am not certain of what their criteria is of how they're doing it.
Okay, and I wonder if Joanne or someone from the vet board might want to, I know it's a little dicey because it's open currently and you don't want to create sort of a situation where we would eliminate ourselves from the process, but I'm really interested in that and how they would evaluate the process moving forward, and if there's an opportunity to, you mentioned matching grant, like a match, if the legislators would think about matching that up, with the funding that's available through the general fund.
I don't think it's a bad question at all to ask during the grant period of how these grants are going to be selected, because then we can tailor to that. And if anybody else is not asking that question, I think that's their own fault because you want as much advantage as possible. So I can reach out. I have some contacts there,
Okay.
and I'll let the board know.
That would be good, because I think maybe this is something that as policymakers we can send a letter at the session, for the next session, or advocating with our legislators the importance of that and just how we're struggling here in Doña Ana County, specifically, Las Cruces area as well. So
Okay,
that
I'll
would
get
be
that to
my
you.
recommendation. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. And I'll piggyback a little bit on that, because I think if we could understand how we might be able to augment the funds. I know like in the county we support SNAP, but if there's a way that we could get the state to help us and provide the funding and increase the number of people we reach, and so I think it'd be an amazing opportunity. So Clint, that'd be great if we could at least understand that, and then maybe we can work with maybe the city, the county, and figure out whether that's something within, run through an application for the through the ASCMV, or maybe a joint application between the city and the county. But I'd love to figure out how we might be able to strategize and work on that, because as Mayor Pro Tem, you point out, it's a huge need in the county.
And then just pushing for a letter as a priority that from the board, and maybe Ms. De Leon from Mayor and City Council a priority, right, in terms of when we do get our lists going in terms of priorities for the next legislative cycle. This would be one for me, most definitely.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. Our grant staff also attended that webinar. That was 2 weeks ago. I asked them to just get information as well, and I was going to request a summary with respect to any information that was passed along for the criteria. I know that we understand the process, and as Clint alluded to, the dates, but I'll see if they gleaned anything with respect to any prioritization or criteria. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Leon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you both. And thank you, Ms. Gilbert. It was good to see you again and to have you present to us. All right, are there no other questions or comments? Then we'll move on to our city and county ACO reports. Supervisor Jimenez, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Wonderful.
Good. Come. Good morning, Sir Chair and members of the board. My name is Gino Jimenez. I am the Animal Control Supervisor for the City of Las Cruces, and I will present to you our June 2023 numbers. So we responded to 469 calls for strays. 202 of those were GOA, meaning the officer did not have contact with that animal. We were able to apprehend 267 animals. 218 were impounded at the Animal Service Center. Of those, 98 were dogs and 120 were cats. We were successful in field RTOing 49 animals, meaning those animals never crossed the threshold of the ASCMV and were given directly back to their owners. We were unsuccessful in field RTOing 27 animals. Those are animals that were identifiable. However, for some reason, the owner could not claim them, and we'll go through that list, the reasons why here in a little bit. So that gave us a total of 76 identifiable animals. Here is our 3-year stray comparison chart. As you can see, like I said, we did 469 for last month, bringing us to a grand total of 3,006 for the year. Looking at the trends for this graph, it looks like we will exceed, by the end of the year, we will exceed the previous 2 years as far as numbers. Here is our 3-year field RTO rate. Again, like I said, we field RTO'd 49, giving us a total of 253 for the year. And again, I think we're on track. If we keep up with this trend, at the end of the year, we will be in line with the other 2 years. Here is a graph for the community cat program. We responded to 75 cats and traps. Of those, 16 already met the requirements for community cats. And so they were released right there in the area, giving us a grand total of 402 cats and trap calls, and with a total of 86 being released in the field. Reasons for owner releasing animals: 6 were dogs that the owner could no longer afford. 5 were puppies that the owner could not find homes for. 5 for dogs for behavioral issue. 5 dogs unable to care for. 2 dogs for aggression. 2 dogs for sick or injured, and 1 cat for aggression. And finally, here is our reasons for officers being unable to field RTO. 26 of those, there was no contact by phone or at residence. As you can see, 1 had an El Paso address, 1 had a Hatch address, and the third one was a homeless individual. And finally, the chip was not registered to any particular owner. So I know that this was a question that was brought up in the last meeting, and it's in reference to my peak performance report that I give out monthly. From what I understood, the members of the council weren't able to get this report, so I'm going to put it in my presentation from now on, if that's okay with the board. So I have 4 measures. Animal control has 4 measures. Measure number one is 65% of reported animal strays are secured. So this last month in June, the ACOs were able to secure 65% of reported stray calls for the year. Excuse me, this was a huge accomplishment for us. The reason being is because ever since the peak performance was implemented, this was the very first year we met that measure. So I was very happy with my staff that for last month, and we accomplished one of those measures. Number 2, 25 of stray animals secured that are returned to their owner in the field. We were able to return 12.6% of strays back to the owners for year to date. Number 3, 10% reduction of stray animal responses. There was a 38.1% increase in stray animal bites from June 1st to June 30th, 2023, as compared to the year of 2022. The reason for that, and I attribute number 3 and number 4 to a huge increase, is because what I call we're coming out of that COVID hangover, where finally people are starting to be more active. Now that COVID is over, the restrictions are over, people are out doing things that they did in 2018 and before. So there's a lot more activity. Now we're seeing a tremendous increase in bites, whereas in 19, 20, and 21, our bite numbers were way, way down, way down because less activity of people. But now I say that we're going back to those pre-COVID numbers. And then measure number 4, 10% reduction in owner-victim bites. There was a 19.5 increase in owner-victim bites for the time period of June 1st through June 30th, 2023, as compared to 2022. So those are the 4 measures that I report in my peak performance report every month. Finally, ACOs responded to 1,250 calls for the month of June, bringing us to a grand total of 7,140 for the year. Highlights for the month, I'm sorry. So far, we haven't had any presentations. I expect that to change here now that school is back in order, and we reach out to the elementary schools and start doing our school presentations. The officers were able to do 87 hours of continuing education. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Gino. Are there any questions? Not seeing any. I did just more of a comment, and I think it's the frustration that I'm sure you all feel with the field RTOs and the inability to reach people because of the phone numbers. And, you know, there was 26, I think it was 26, that were there. And that would have easily, you know, when it was interesting to look at it from in terms of the metrics, because like where you said you were at 12.6%, I believe, and the goal was 25%. You know, if you could have had even, you know, several, at least half of that, that would have bumped the number up to like 15, 16%, and closer to that. But it's the small things that make it hard and challenging for you and your team to be able to reach this. And I know it's so I appreciate this slide because I think it's just interesting to be able to connect the numbers and then how I guess you're evaluating yourselves. But at the same time, I'm sure it can be maddening to try and reach people, and then something so small with, you know, not being able to reach them and understand or figure out what you can do with, like in this case, microchip. But I appreciate everything you guys do. And like I said, I appreciate having the slide in here because it's just kind of providing additional context is really interesting and understanding the problems that you all see. So thank you, Gino.
I appreciate that, sir. And to be honest with you, on measure number 2, I always add in a note on my formal report where I include the ones that were the possible field RTOs. So yes, for this particular month, had we been able to field RTOs, those numbers that were missed, we would have been up to 18.6. Wow. We still wouldn't have reached our measure, but we would have been closer.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Gino. Mayor Pro Tem Gondra.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Supervisor Jimenez, for the presentation. Bravo for someone who helped institute the peak performance. We found it really just invaluable, right, to kind of ensure that our internal processes were in place, right, goals, objectives, those kinds of things as we scaled out to the outside contractors, right, to ensure that they had measurements that we could be accountable to, and being able to match that 65% last month is incredible. So bravo, thank you. Please extend my gratitude to your staff. I think that's really important because it's not easy. I was hoping that you would have not just percentages, but numbers of dogs or whatever that the animals consist of there. Do you know what I mean? Like, was it 10 dogs? And, you know, that were, you know, just the numbers would be helpful to me. Did you do that and I'm not paying attention? Sort of. Okay. Yes.
Mr. Chair, Mayor Pro Tem, these numbers come
not paying
right
attention, apparently.
from here.
Yes. Okay.
So these numbers, as you can see right here, are the totals for the year. This is the monthly numbers. Wait, this is the wrong one. So if you look at our field RTOs, here's the 49. And then if it correlates directly with this number here because it's a running total.
I just couldn't remember from 6, 7, and 8. So if you can kind of side by side, maybe,
Okay.
for better ease to visually, that would be really important, because I think these are really important numbers, especially as we're considering strategic planning moving forward, how dependent you are on all the nonprofits out there, the center, to do the work that's important around spade and neutering and microchipping. It's so important that that we have that coordination and collaboration, that we're offering programming. I think to help those numbers, it's important, but most importantly, to reduce the number of animals that are coming into the center. And so I know that the county has made lots of effort in regards to, and not that county numbers are in here, they're not, because it's the surrounding areas, but it would be interesting to see a side-by-side comparison between city and county, and the efforts that you're doing around spade and neutering, especially because you've done special programming and provided funding allocation to that particular area. So, I get lots of pushback and emails specifically about, when are you going to offer this more money for spade and neutering? And although we've increased the budget in the center, and we rely on the center, right, to do that spade and neutering, and I think the caveat is ensuring that we have the vet to do that work, and that's sort of the rub, right? And so I appreciate Jean bringing that up, but for me, it would be helpful if, I don't know what I'm asking, maybe some research or something county-wide that would crunch the numbers together so we have a better idea of what we're working on and how we plan for the next 3 to 5 years. And I don't know that we've ever done that.
Yeah, no, and I think I'd be curious to see, because I know we have the numbers that we get from the county during the presentation. I think, as you mentioned, we're getting, from each of the organizations, but I'd be kind of curious to understand, because in this case, the ASCMV is the recipient of all the efforts up front by our ACO department. So it'd be I agree with you. I'd be curious to see, kind of the differences and understand what different initiatives might affect and what has been successful and maybe not, and then trying to figure out together what we could do so that hopefully we have fewer intakes into the ASCMV.
And I'm thinking maybe it's a relationship with NMSU or DACC, a project for students, Counselor Coran, since you're a professor, where, right, we do some research and evaluation around that. I think that would be an excellent idea, that we would put forth maybe some effort to coordinate alongside those two, higher ed, and so that we have a better idea because what are we doing? It's hard to have those separate with all the work that's happening with our external partners as well. So I don't know, Becky, if that's something, Councilor Cran, something that some of your students or NMSU might be interested in doing?
I feel like the students that are working on animal sort of management especially might be interested in that at NMSU, both pet and not pet, which there are a lot of those students, so that might be an opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I mean, I'd love to have more discussion on it and see what we could figure out and understand. Like I said, if we go into the strategic planning for the ASCMV, also looking up, like I said, within our ACOs or the animal control division. So, thank you.
Mr.
Maybe
Chairman.
we just start internally first, and then then start plugging in our partners, because that's a huge lift, and I understand that. But maybe that's something to think of in the interim.
Mr. Macias?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I don't know that this goes directly to the point that Mayor Pro Tem Gandara is discussing, but within one of the subcommittees that we're working, we have been having discussions, and maybe Gino can share a little bit more, where we identify a high pickup area of animals, a high collection area, and a corresponding county portion to it. And that we carry out a pilot project using the county's mobile unit and a concentrated effort to see what it would take in terms of a spay and neuter program as well, to reduce the number of animals that are being collected, to use it as a pilot to see what strategies can work and whether we can reduce the number of animals within the city and within the county. So I know that Mary Lou and Gino and certainly Ms. De Leon and I have been having that discussion to see if we can target that and propose that as a pilot project and test it out for 8 months to a year in terms of really the kind of the strategies that would reduce the animal collection in both the county and the city. Because obviously, because of the movement of the animals, we would have to have a corresponding effort within the city, not just the county doing a pilot project or not just the city doing a pilot project, but in unison together. Just that you're aware, there isn't all of the detail, but we certainly have been having that kind of discussion, and I think we're still working on identifying what portion of the city and what portion of the county would be the more appropriate partnership.
Great, thank you, Mr. Macias, for sharing that.
Chairman, Mayor Pro Tem, I think with your request, I can get with Mary Lou and see if we can't come up with a combined presentation, maybe to put at the end of our monthly report, maybe quarterly, yearly, something like that.
Thank you, Gino. I think I'd be curious if we can figure it out. I think it's just kind of as we're trying to figure out how we move forward and best strategize for the ASCMV as we grow. I think it's probably Clint will note here in a little bit on his numbers. It'll be we continue to see such high intakes and population in the ASCMV that it's what can we do? If we can do it, whether it's a pilot project, as Mr. Macias is indicating that we're working on, or whatever else, it would be great to figure it out, because in the end, the overcrowding that we see, or the large population that we see in the ASCMV, is concerning, because it doesn't go towards the goal of being a live release or a live release shelter. And we've had to increase the number of euthanizations because of that. But like I said, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I appreciate it, and we can figure that out as we go.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there any other questions for Gino? All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. Now we'll move on to the county.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the board. I'm Officer Snow. I'm the lead animal control officer for Doña County Animal Control. I will be presenting the presentation this morning for the June stats for county animal control. Reported strays for the month for 275 reported stray animals. We had 243 strays that were picked up. Out of that was 112 cats and 131 dogs. We had 3 sick or injured animals, 1 cat, 2 dogs. We had 18 owners surrender animals, 0 cats, 18 dogs, and that will be, there's another slide on further down that explains the owner releases. Reported stray animal calls for the 4-year comparison. As you can see, we were pretty well where we have been. 275 stray animal calls for June. Pretty well running pretty same there on that. The 4-year field return to owner comparison chart. For the month of June, we had 17 animals returned, which was a little lower. It was higher than last year, but a little lower than for 2021. with more officers now in the field, we should be seeing that number come up. If we get more officers in the field with more time to spend time trying to find the owners. Additional animals picked up or owner surrendered cat, 0. We owner surrendered dogs, 18. We had 3 sick and injured animals. We had 2 welfare holds. We had 11 shelter quarantines with 1 home quarantine. We had 1 court hold quarantine cases. Live evidence currently held in our court hold facility is 1. We had 2 rabies submissions, 11 diverted intakes. We had 699 general educational handed out, and these were our 10 essentials and our educational handouts. And this is so high because for the month of June, in the month of June, we went back to doing what we call our ACES project, Animal Control Environmental Survey, and we started with tortugas. And this is why that was so high. And we had 727 total calls for the month of June. This is a breakdown of districts. District 1, which is Hatch, Garfield, Rhodey, Rincon, and Placitas, we picked up 6 cats, 3 dogs for a total of 9. District 2, Radium Springs, Fair Acres, and Donna Ana was 32 cats, 12 dogs for a total of 44. District 3, Oregon, White Sands, East Mesa, and the Butterfield area. We had 39 cats, 27 dogs for a total of 66. District 4, Mesilla Park, South Valley, Vado, San Miguel, La Mesa, Mesquite, and Los Alturas. We had a total of 18 cats, 16 dogs for a total of 34. District 5, which is Anthony and Marino, we had 7 cats, 26 dogs for a total of 33. District 6 includes Chamberino, La Union, Santa Teresa, and Sunland Park. We had 1 cat, 4 dogs for a total of 5. District 7, Chaparral and Desert Air, we had a total of 9 cats, 43 dogs for a total of 52 animals picked up in District 7. Stray cats picked up by geographic districts for year-to-date for 2023. D1, which is the northern districts, Hatch in that area, we had 6. District 2, Donna Ana, in that area was 32. District 3, the East Mesa, was 39. District 4, which is the South Valley area, Mesilla Park, Mesquite, in that area had 18. District 5, Anthony area, Chamberino, Barino, we had 7. District 6, La Union, Sunland Park, Santa Teresa, we had 1. And District 7, which is Chaparral and Desert Air, there was 9 for the month of June. Stray dogs picked up by geographic districts for the month of June. In District 1, we had 3. District 2, there was 12. District 3, there was 27. District 4, 16. District 5, 26. District 6, 4, and District 7, 43 through the month of June. The reasons for release of ownership for the 18 animals we had unable to keep on property were 7. We had vicious livestock attack of 4. We had 2 sick and injured, and we had 5 they were unable to take care of. Any questions on my presentation?
Thank you, Officer. Are there any questions? No? Mary Lou?
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment, and we'll add the actual detail of statistics, but we did have the ACES project in there. So we had the initial project, and then we had the follow-up project, which was in June. So I know we did have, when we went into the Tortugas area, that was the initial area we went to. We saw 53 residents. Of the number of residents we went to, 53 of them were in compliance. And then, of course, we issued the educational outreach and went back and gave them resources with dumpsters and whatnot and veterinary things to come in compliance a week and a half later. Then we went back this past month and did our follow-ups. We saw 77% compliance after that. So that was a significant amount of compliance going back into that community. But we'll give the detail of all the statistics here pretty soon. But I just wanted to let the board know the amount of compliance we saw in that neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. I appreciate the update. And Mr. Macias?
Mr. Chairman, just as a follow-up to the report that was being made, the county is finally up to its full complement of animal control officers of 11. We had 2 more individuals accept positions, and they have starting dates that are very soon. So we will be operating at full strength.
Great, that's wonderful news. Thank you for that. All right. Officer, thank you so much for the updates. All right, we'll move on to shelter statistics and activities. Mr. Thacker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Glenn Thacker, Executive Director of the Animal Service Center, Mesilla Valley. Here to present to you the June 2023 numbers. The current animal population at the center is 503, 417 dogs and 83 cats, you'll see there. Our intake numbers have, the word exploded came to mind when I have seen these. You see it's over 100 and about 40 animals, higher than it was before. 523 dogs, 428 cats. On this. These are the way those animals came into the center. So 16% came in from owner surrenders. You see there's the other highlights, strays by public was the next one at 24%. And then as usual, because the ACO, that's their job to bring us those animals, is 55.8%. We only had 5 dogs returned. And what I hear is the majority of those were returned the next day. So the chance for that animal to adjust really wasn't given, but only 5 came back. And that's a relatively low number for us. Our diverted intakes were down just a little bit, but we're so grateful for the 169 that did not come. For those watching for the first time, a diverted intake is handled usually or generally by our front staff when somebody comes in with a stray animal they found or a surrendered animal that the people don't want. We ask them if they'd be willing to check with other local rescues, if they'd be able to find another home for the animal, if it's their own animal. We give them a resource packet. They can contact different phone numbers, listing it at different places online, see if the animal can get out. So we had 169 animals of those diverted. These are how they left the center. So 14% on adoptions, 8.9% reclaims. Big number here is the 25.4% on the rescue. That was a phenomenal amount in percentage that they worked so hard to get these animals out, and we're so grateful for our local rescues, and that's on the next slide. You'll see what rescues took those. The big one here, though, is that 52% for euthanasia. It absolutely floored us. When we look at the explosion population that we had, we're no longer going by, as the board knows, by how many we can have in the center. It's more of how many we can adequately care for at the center. So we don't want animals inside cages. We don't want animals stacked on top of each other in the aisleways. And so those are things, warehousing animals is basically what we were doing in years past, trying to keep up with the high intake that was occurring. These animals weren't suffering. They're still getting the basic food, water, and shelter, but we felt as a management team that the quality of care could be much better for that. It's also required by the Shelter Standards Board or the Shelter Statistics that every animal have a certain amount of contact and care. So in order to get to that number that they require, we did have to do quite a bit of euthanasia. So our live release rate is 52%. Here is our June transfers. You see, again, Action Program for Animals is always a big one. We sure appreciate them. The big one this year for us, though, when going outside of New Mexico or local, is Halo Animal Rescue. Did a lot of animals for us. These are big transports that we do once, maybe twice a year. However, I'm sorry, once or twice a month. However, I know that they are slowing down because they're not moving animals as fast as they used to. And they said because of the heat, people don't want to come out. They're based in Phoenix, so they'll slow down a little bit. So we're just waiting for things to cool down a little bit, and we can start back up into those higher number of rescues. So these are euthanasias, as you can see, for cats, that first big yellow spike. That is for medical respiratory signs. So an animal comes in, we just don't right now have the space to treat these signs of respiratory. So non-TX is non-treatment. So if it comes in, has clinical signs of it, and we don't have the space, we hold them for the time that they need to be reclaimed, to become our property, and then we need to euthanize them. The biggest one for the dogs is space medical. These are animals that have a general medical issue that if we had space, we would hold on to them longer and do some treatments and testing and see what can be done. But because we don't, we have to euthanize them. Looks like the next is ringworm for cats, which is a constant issue. Constant, just coming in. They're not getting it from us, but coming in with ringworm. And then the next one for dogs is the parvo non-treatment, where parvo it's more or less, it's easy to treat as far as you just give IV fluids and secondhand medication, but in order to do that, you have to have a whole separate area for this extremely contagious disease, virus that can get in. I mean, you're talking just if you walk through an area that a dog has parvo and you walk through the rest of the area, that whole area is exposed. That's how contagious parvo is. So that's the next highest one. Our amazing surgery team, I don't know how they do it every year, but every month they surprise me. 290 surgeries, you can see there. June was, again, a hard month with all these continuing adoptions and everything coming through. They are amazing what they do every single month. Year to date, over 1,800 surgeries. If you have been to the center and you see our little surgery suite, and you know why I'm so surprised. They do amazing things there. Our volunteers, our current volunteer coordinator is amazing. We sure appreciate all that she does for us. I know the volunteers respect her, and they love the communication that she puts out all the time. So we have a dog walking team. They did 85 hours, just fantastic. They come in at least once a month, and their goal is and it's in a weekend, and their goal is to walk every dog that's available to be walked. And they do it. It's very inspiring to watch them do. Cat care team, these are people that come in and clean cats. We never thought in a million years there'd be people that would be interested in cleaning cats, but we opened it up and people came, and we're so grateful for them. Total volunteers, 320, and 677 total hours. Our visitors just stayed about the same, 1,500 for the center. Total web page views, down just a little bit, but it's just the up and down. So I would say about average where we're at there. Again, web page views for the first time you're watching isn't original hits, it's every page that's viewed. So if I view a dog and I go back and then I view another dog, that's 3 views for that. Our Facebook continues since October 22, where we had our big spike, and then November 22, it went up even more. Continues to grow and develop. I'm very grateful, and we have our incredible, I want to say, social media team, because it's me, our rescue coordinators, so many people have access to Facebook as administrators that if they see something, they can put it on there, both fun and original, and also information and impounds, things like that, constantly getting that information out. So it's always refreshing, new information going out. Some of our upcoming events, National Night Out. This is going to be a fun one, not just because I'm going to be there, but because we're going to be having, teaming up with the city. We have, this is a night out where there's law enforcement and fire engines and sirens and just tons of fun. It's going to be, we're actually having myself and our medical director is going to be there, as well as some of our office supervisors. And we're just going to have fun. Dogs are going to be walking around on leash. We're going to ask if it's microchipped, we'll scan it, and we're going to give them a microchip. So just fun stuff like that we're going to be there. We're going to have things to hand out and get the word out that where we're at. We are also going to be at the Petrokia. They're actually doing an event during the month of August. Is Cure the Shelters. It's a national event throughout the whole United States. And so they're going to be having a offsite there at their facility to help us celebrate the Cure the Shelter. And then we have our Pizza Hut. It's going to be fun, and Petco is always a good draw for these animals. And these are just the larger upcoming events. We have others throughout the weekend that we do throughout the month. Here's Greg and Cody. Good news, Greg was adopted. So we're happy to announce that. But if you're looking for a white and black cat, please come down and see. And then Cody with his goofy face, adorable as ever, he wants to be one of yours. So that is a presentation I have for you today. I do also want to note really quick that on June 1st, I did a disease presentation to city and county officers, and also our staff were able to attend. So we did 2 sessions of that. And I think it was well received. We had some good questions asked throughout it. And it kind of just gave all of my staff and the officers reasons why we do the things we do. And we did a little fun thing afterwards of one thing that you learned. And there were some really good things that were gleaned from it that I hope that they took out with reasons and know why we ask you to do certain things. So that was fun too.
Thank you, Clint. Are there any questions, comments? Mr. Macias, I'll give you some credit, although I don't know it was specifically this, but with Greg getting adopted, you had quite the sales pitch during the commission meeting on Tuesday.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you, Clint. I'll move on now to committee reports, starting with the Finance Committee. Ms. De Leon.
Thank you so much, Chair. Yes, the Finance Committee met to go over the most recent financials. Josh Saffel is going to present those to us. While he's bringing up the presentation, just want to also give you an update on some of the other work that we're doing on the Animal Service Center Joint Power Agreement, Memorandum of Understanding, and the lease between the Animal Service Center and the city for the facilities that are used by the Animal Service Center. So we have been meeting city and county and Animal Service Center to provide input on wording changes for the JPA and MOU at the city for the fiscal agent service providers, finance, IT, HR, risk, fleet. Also reviewed the services to be provided by the Animal Service Center to make sure that the MOU would accurately reflect that. So we are we've completed that review, and so we're going to get back together to just go over the revisions. Once that's in place, the information that's in the MOU for the service provision will be included in our annual cost allocation study that we do to basically quantify the services that are provided to the Animal Service Center. And then that will ultimately make its way into the Animal Service Center budget and the request for the board to review and approve. So that takes care of the JPA and MOU that we're in process. The JPA currently stipulates that the city and the Animal Service Center have a lease in place, and That hasn't been the case, but we are working on that. One of the big items in that lease has to do with the fair market value for the facilities that are in use, and making sure that we can identify services that the Animal Service Center provides to the community, the value of which would offset that fair market value. So our analysts at the city came up with a couple of options. We met with Clint recently and Bernice to determine what would be the best methodology, and we are going to move forward with identifying the neuter and spay services that Animal Service Center provides below market value for the community to offset that fair market value. So I don't foresee any issues with using that as a methodology. There's going to have to be a little bit different reporting from the Animal Service Center, but they're already collecting some of the data that would be needed to just monitor that on a quarterly basis. So I think there's some good progress being made to that end. So we're now working on getting that wording into a lease. Our land management services are helping with that as well. So all of those things will be coming forward for review for the board.
Great, thank you so much for those updates, and I think it's been important as we've been working through the JPA and all that, so thank you, Ms. De Leon. Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. De Leon, for the update. Very helpful. Very much appreciate it. Do you have a time frame for each of those areas, JPA, MOA, lease?
So I believe that the JPA and MOU are substantially complete. We need to have one more review, which I've asked my administrative staff to schedule between the city and county who have been reviewing this. And then I don't foresee any difficulty in bringing that forward once we reviewed in the next, perhaps at the next board meeting, if possible. The lease as well, I think we are using templates such that we've used for Community of Hope. And so land management is very well versed. The holdup was just identifying the methodology for the offset of the fair market value, but I think now that that's in place, we'll be able to move forward quickly, and I would expect the next month or two would be able to bring something forward for consideration. Our legal would have to review both of those documents as well. And Mr. Macias, I don't know if on the county side, if your legal has it reviewed the MOU or JPA?
They have at different stages, but I'm not sure if it's the latest draft. I think we were waiting to finalize the draft before submitting it again.
So that would be the next step after we review. So I will definitely keep you posted on the time frame for that to be completed. Thanks.
Thanks, Barbara. Also, does that also include that whole issue with the spade and neuter being below market value? I guess I'm trying to understand that. I know it's below market value, meaning what we charge is not fair market, and you're asking them to come up with a mechanism of reporting, or where are we going, and when would we start to see this change in the way they're reporting spade and neutering?
So that reporting that I'm referring to is related to the lease only. So typically when we, as with the Community of Hope campus, when we have structured a lease with the tenant providing certain services, they provide us with a quarterly report to review to ensure that they are meeting those commitments. So once the lease agreement is executed, then I anticipate we'll start to see quarterly reports related to the number of spay and neuters that are taking place, different types of operations. We're comparing that to an industry benchmark and a regional number right now, but we're going to solidify that. But that would be something that we would monitor administratively with respect to the execution of the lease. Right now, Animal Service Center is collecting the data that would be required to provide us with that information. It's just not extracted right now in a report format, but that's one of the things that Clint and Bernice would be working on for us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Pro Tem, and thank you, Ms. De Leon. All right. Mr. Saffel? At least I think, are you done? Okay, cool.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Josh Saffel, and on behalf of the Finance Department of the City of Las Cruces, I'd like to present the preliminary unaudited financial statements as of June 30th, 2023. So starting off with looking here, we have our statement of net position highlights. We're showing in the general fund cash of $579,864 and receivables of $138,168, giving us total assets of $718,032. We offset that with liabilities of $127,044, revenue collected in advance of $231,059, and this leaves us with an unassigned fund balance for the period of $359,929. Moving on to our change in net position. Here we see total revenues for the period are $4,044,984, and we have total expenditures of $4,112,892, and transfers out of $21,000. That left us with a difference of $88,000 negative change. So that, of course, impacted the fund balance. Looking at our budget to actual change in net position, we see total revenue of $4,044,000 is 91.7% of the budget. Our total expenditure of $4,112,000 is 90.4% of that budget. Of course, this being the end of the year, our budget parameter was set at about 100%. Expenditure was well under that. Of course, the revenue was under that as well. So just wanted to highlight a few things. The biggest would be, if you look, you see salary and benefits were both well over 100%. In the past, I know that Mr. Thacker and others had talked about the salary. We had increases due to the accepting higher salary for individuals, and that there was an issue with the budget this year that we had to use a previous year's budget, and so we're finally seeing how that's impacting now with the actuals being over budget. But as far as I know, this is corrected, and we will not see this issue in next year's budget. But that is the impact that has had, we can see there. Looking at revenues and expenditures throughout the period, we see that more often than not, the expenditures were over the revenue. But all in all, it did come out that we do have a positive fund balance of $399,000, but that was impacted throughout the year negatively of $88,000 was what it ended up being at the end of the year. If we look at our expenditures, year-to-date total expenditures were $4,112,892. Of that, 51% was the salary, 17% were benefits. Then the next largest was services at 18%, supplies at 7%, capital was 3.7%, and the rest were 1% or less of that budget, or excuse me, of that expenditure amount. And that will conclude my presentation. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Saffel. Are there any questions on the financial report? All right, not seeing any. So thank you, sir.
And I'd just like to say too, this is my last time presenting in front of the board. Going forward, I would like to introduce Veronica Ulloa. I hope I got that right. She is now the accountant in charge, and so starting next quarter, she will be presenting in front of the board.
Thank you. Thank you for welcome, Ms. Ulloa, and Josh. It was always a pleasure to have you working on the financials, and so thank you so much. All right. Then we'll move on to the updates from the executive committee, which when we had a phone call with Mr. Thacker and Mayor Pro Tem Gondara and myself, just a quick summary that I had, we discussed some of the updates on the facility, some of the challenges with the cat cages and a couple of the other items. And so, I know that we're continuing to work through that. We did also discuss some concerns and trying to figure out how we can work on getting a grant writer. And so we have some updates. Thank you.
Clint Thacker, Executive Director, we do have an update. I was able to reach out to our former grant writer, Elaine
Stakara Simon.
Stakara Simon, thank you. And she is more than happy to do some contract work for us. So that is very beneficial. She is an amazing grant writer, got us a lot of approval grants throughout the time when she was with us, but she's already started. So we have our Petco Love Grant that is due on the 31st of July. She is sending it to me, she said, tonight for approval. So we're going to keep her busy what we can.
That's great. And I know one of the concern and the challenge is that while we were waiting to post the position for a grant writer, and I think there was going to be some trying to work on some changes to the position, and I know Clint is working with the HR department to get that posting up, but in the meantime, as a stopgap, we had discussed possibly doing a contract to just help us get these initial grants through, and it worked out very well with Elaine, because she's very familiar with the ASCMV and can very, I think, she did an amazing job during her tenure here, so I'm really glad to hear that she could do this. And like I said, this is just, I think, more of a stopgap measure, but glad that worked out. So thank you, Clint. And then the other thing that we discussed, and it came up, was around some concerns about the a recent event that was sponsored by the ASCMV, and it was regarding the Chihuahua races that were held here in downtown, or at the plaza, during the Cerveza and Tequila, I believe, fiesta. And there were concerns that were brought up. I know Mayor Pro Tem heard some concerns from constituents. I did as well. And I think Clint had discussed, kind of the way the event was set up. And it was done, I believe, in a way, I think when we discussed it, Clint, you had said if anybody was really wanted to see it, you could go online to the Facebook page and see what it really entailed. And it was done in the evening and done in a way that, the animals were not under any duress or under, some significant or extreme conditions. And so I think that just kind of as a statement, I know, I trust Clint and the staff. And so, if there's events like this, and obviously we encourage the public to reach out and ask questions if they do have concerns. But I know that this is something that they're always careful of making sure that if they are going to be putting the ASCMV name on it, it's done in a way that animals are taken care of and are safe and cared for. So just wanted to state that. But those are my 3 notes that I had from our meeting for the executive committee. Are there any questions, comments? All right, then we'll move on to facilities. Mayor Pro Tem Gantara, did you have any updates for the facilities?
I felt like you got it taken care of, although there might be some updates specifically around the cages. All of the cages, but a few have that are not fitting in the area, so there's going to need to be the re-exam and redesign and a different option for those that don't fit in the designated spots. Clint, I know this week we spoke of the gate that's missing, that needs to either be fixed or put up, because we're having folks basically dumping animals back there, or on the side, I don't remember quite, and I know your staff is very concerned about that, so you've had some discussions with the county and whatnot, and I'd like for you to update us on that specifically.
Yes, I could do that. Clint Thacker, Executive Director. So it was actually a July event, so that's why we didn't talk about it in June for the June things, and it happened after our meeting. But we had a county ACO back into our gate that covers our intake area. So temporarily, while the new center is being built, the officers drive around to it'd be the east side of the center, and that's where they do their impound. And they have to get out and manually open 2 gates in order to do it, and then they close them. Well, this officer was getting out of the way of the other officers that were coming in, and they backed into the gate. So it rendered the gate useless. The pole, the big, large, heavy pole that handles that gate was bent over. But everything was taken care of in that way. All the reporting was done quickly, pictures were taken, and so then we've bent the pole back, and we're able to put some of our temporary fence panels in and get them chained up so they can kind of act as a hinge and get things done. In the meantime, we've acquired 3 quotes. So far, we've only gotten 1. And that's the problem with this process. It just takes so long to get these quotes done. We explained to them, the emergency situation. So we're waiting on those 3 quotes, and then we submit it to the county risk management, and they proceed from there. We're just lucky that we kept some of the older gates or the older panels that we had from another construction time, and were able to secure that. While the time that we did not have those in, we did have 2 events. One of them was a person came into the back, helped themselves to one of our temporary kennels, one of the wire crates, and put their dog in it and left it by the back door. And then another event was that the individual came and was confronted by one of our staff that was there, and they were said, one was saying, I'm not ditching the dog, I'm just dropping it off because he's dog we found, I think it was. And our employee was saying, well, it sure looks like you're ditching the dog, back and forth, to the conclusion of is that I believe they came back later and brought the dog in. So we're just glad that no animals got out and got loose on the freeway for that event. But we are temporarily secured right now.
Okay, good to hear. Good to hear. Anything updating on the cages?
Boy, do I have some updates.
Okay.
So we were so excited several weeks ago when our cat cages arrived. They started to install them, and the outside of the cage that is supposed to be a glass wall is a solid wall. And we're like, that won't work. Not only that, but they're also about 13 inches shorter than what we ordered. So we looked at the original submitting documents, and they do have it as a glass wall. So the one good thing I can say about the company we've gone through is they have admitted their mistake. They are willing to send us new cages that are the proper height that has been submitted, and also send us that glass wall. In the meantime, they said to go ahead and alter what we need to alter to get us open. So Jane's Corporation, who's there installing them, is cutting the front of the kennel off, that solid wall, and putting plexiglass up. So it does not look, the only word I can think of is hokey. It doesn't look odd. It kind of looks like it was designed that way. So we're good in looks. They're caulking it. It does look professional, as you can get. So we are going to move forward with those for the time being, but it's going to take about 12 weeks to get new kennels sent to us. So, but once they're in, we'll be able to transfer the new ones in with the beautiful glass wall. The dog kennels, we have all but 6 have been installed, and they have a plan moving forward of how to do those 6. However, in order to keep the warranty and everything for those kennels, they have to do the installing. Jane's or us, we can't go in and install. They were supposed to be there this week to install, but here it is Thursday and nobody's arrived. So Jane's is looking into that to complete the 6 installations. Another thing I found out that was new to me, it was unknown, is the top of the kennels on the exterior of the kennels has been value engineered out. Me nor our kennel supervisor was aware of this, and I told the architect, I go, of all places, this is where we need tops of the kennels. At least on the inside of the kennel, they're contained by doors, and they get out. I go, but if they get out here, they have a possibility of hitting the freeway. So we're looking into how much that is going to be to get tops. It has to be nothing special. It's just a fence panel that we can put on and secure down. So we're getting quotes for that. The cement is still an ongoing issue. We are giving James the opportunity to quote, or to give a bid on it. The amount has gone down exponentially for it, is what we were told. That's the word they used, is exponentially. They are submitting it. They had a deadline of tomorrow to submit that quote, so we look forward to that amount. They said their problem right now is finding a contractor that has cement workers that can start as soon as possible, because everybody's so busy. Most of them are booked out through August and September. So we do not want to wait that long. So that's one wait that we have, or one small hiccup. So that's my update for the new center. It's a big, beautiful building, but boy, she is frustrating sometimes. So, but we also got a certificate of occupation, or occupancy, thank you, that's a hard word for me, occupancy, which means we can be in there and doing things. So computers are gonna be set up today or tomorrow. So that's exciting to see those things in there. Our dishwasher should be arriving anytime. We are setting up our stainless steel tables. We can also start using the washers and dryers. So that'll be big. So we're just waiting on training for those big machines, and we can get that started. But you know, things are moving forward best we can.
Clint, I appreciate the update, the new update. I wanted to ask, so there's been, several delays. I know, Mr. Leon, I'd asked Mr. Peely about those delays and what that means in our contract in terms of not meeting, right, the deadline, pardon me, set forth. And if the contractor is being charged daily, I know in other contracts that has been something, right, that we insist that be a part of that. Is that currently happening? Because we're way past the deadlines for many of these things. And I'm not sure if we're holding our contractors accountable daily for the delays and whatnot.
I do not have that information, okay. So you've been in communication with the city manager, and I will also check with ACM Delgado, since Public Works is one of her departments, to see if we can get you that information.
Thank you, Mr. Leon.
I can update you a little bit on that.
Okay,
so I talked to the program manager, Tom Gallagher. He stated that yes, there is in the contract fines that they can do. However, when the contractor cites supply issues, where they cite, things out of their control, a lot of times it's hard to quantify whether that is a fine and how much it would be. So that's their problem with when we submit a submittal saying cages need to be this high and so forth, and they send us the wrong one and they admit, that's out of their hands. That's a fine that he said would not be charged to the contractor. So yes, it's in there, but if it's being charged is a hard one. I can follow up and ask them specifically if there are any that's done. I can tell you that some of the meetings that we have get quite heated because people are now kind of pointing fingers, not to the point of yelling or anything, but it's kind of that awkward silence sometimes. So everybody is frustrated at the moment with how long it's taking. I can tell you that.
Okay, I appreciate that, and just trying to find some solutions about the cement work, and if there are other contractors or such that we could pull from, maybe regionally. I don't know what that might look like, but we've been working on this for some time, or were we not working with the county on this piece as well? I thought the county had recommended they could do a lot of that work. Am I?
Yeah, we met with the county, and the parts that they could do, they said they're used to doing large swaths. They do sidewalk side work, not large things, and that was the issue. So,
okay.
It was an excellent idea.
Gosh, we need some help in that direction for sure. So anything, Barbara, you could do to help expedite this, that would be very helpful. Hate to put it on your plate, but I appreciate anything you do. Thank you, Clint.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gondara. And Clint, do you want some sidewalks inside the Inside the service center?
Sadly, we only have sidewalks in there right now. What we need is large pieces of cement. And we also went back to the original plan of having individual drains and each get acquainted because there was concerns about the chemicals and things over time.
Yeah.
So we just thought it was better to route it into the sewer system. So, yeah, we're back to that, which drove the cost up. But like they said, exponentially lower. So that's good.
Got it. Thank you, Clint. Appreciate it. Are
Mr.
there any-
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Just to supplement the response, I don't think it had to do with the county just doing sidewalks. I think it had to do with the equipment that was necessary. The county didn't have that. I participated in the discussion. I didn't get a sense that the contractor wanted us in there doing the work. We certainly were prepared to do it, but we would have had to have rented or used other equipment to be able to carry out the task. I can still go back and revisit whether it's an issue and whether we can do something to assist. But I didn't get a real good, warm sense from the contractor that they wanted us
to do it.
doing the work.
So we needed the equipment to do it, and Barbara, does the city have the equipment to?
She would. I don't know that she would be able to respond because
No,
the
I
equipment
know.
are machines.
Yes.
To kind of spread the cement and to kind of move dirt around. I think it's one of those smaller compactors because of the space, if I remember correctly, but I certainly will go back and check.
Yeah,
Public
a-
Works
and I-
would know.
That's right, absolutely. And I know that we were looking at external contractors as well. I don't know if that's a matter of just internal resource availability or just because with other schedules and projects.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for the updates. Are there any other questions, comments? All right, not hearing or seeing any, so we'll move on to the public input portion of our section of our meeting. Are there any members of the public that would like to provide input? I'm not seeing any, so we'll move on to chair and board comments. Are there any comments from the board? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes. Thank you to staff and Clint and all of the city and county staff for today's meeting. I wanted to recommend that we have a standing agenda item with the newly organized meeting of the city and county, not only speaking about JPA MOA leases, but the spade and neuter, the idea of re-examining our ordinances, and like to hear regular updates. It feels a little ambiguous, and I want to make sure that I'm very appreciative of the group meeting. It sort of takes a load off for not having to participate. But I feel like there are some policy implications and or policy things that could move into the policy realm that a representative from this board should be sitting on, or I would compromise and want to have the updates regularly at this board meeting. So I'm recommending that. I'm also hoping that we would see some movement around looking at evaluation and research around the areas we spoke of today, a combination of city and county. That's new to us, and so who's going to take that on and research it and come back? I guess I'm looking at Clint. I feel it's so necessary to have this information, or at least start on this. And so I'm asking that you start doing some research about, and maybe working with Council Coran and others, the DACC, and maybe it's the dual program at NMSU, that public health and social work. Maybe some group would like to take this on as a semester project, a year-long project, looking at the data right, on both sides, and incorporating the nonprofits in this as it relates to those performance measures that Gino presented earlier. I think that's something we really need to move into so we have a better understanding of how we move forward strategically. And then I continue to be really concerned with our euthanasia rates and what's happening around really irresponsible pet ownership. And it feels like it's a double-edged sword. It's like, we gotta have more education, and where does that education lie? And I love and I continue to be so impressed with the county and their ACEs project. I know that you've had some vacancies that prevented you from doing more of them, and I know the city does some of that, but we also have vacancies, and I'm not sure where we're at, but I really would like to see more education in the public, more marketing related to responsible pet ownership. I also feel that mandatory spade and neutering is, for me, I think, something that needs to happen in order to reflect, to get the numbers that we'd like to see. So I feel there's a lot there that we, and education is always that, I feel, the crux of it. And we need more of that. So how do we work from the ACOs, both at city and county and Animal Services Center? Who's doing that? I know Jean provided a lot of information with the group that does do some of that, but I feel it's piecemeal. I feel it's very siloed, and I'd like to see more coordination and collaboration amongst the educational component with all of those entities. And with that, I'll just turn it back. Oh, the other thing is grant writer. I would really like to see some recognition and awards given maybe to our NGOs at the beginning of this meeting. I think that's really important. I want to highlight maybe a program that's doing some excellent work. Yes, we have them come and do presentations, but I think it's important that it comes from our Animal Services Center because there's some incredible work that's happening. I'd love to start doing that, maybe staff recognition monthly. So that goes to the organization of our meeting. And then one of the things that we spoke of, Chair Sanchez, with Clint, was the grant writer position and the contract that we're putting in place with Eileen. Did I get it? Elaine. I knew it was an E. Elaine. And I'm so grateful to her that she's taken on this. But there was some, Barbara, and I'll look to you, some dialogue with HR about increasing sort of the job description with that, and sort of the reply was we need to do an analysis around that. And I'm feeling like I don't know that that is completely necessary because it's under that all duties as assigned, and it just prolongs what we're wanting to do with that grant writer position to include Clint. Clint has always had the vision about creating his own 501c3, like a funding arm to the center. And I asked him to reach out to the community foundation, maybe start looking at creating an endowment, those things. I know, Clint, you've had the conversation with him about the grants that are available, but it's more than that for me. It's just not the grants that are available at the foundation. It's establishing a fundraising mechanism that the community foundation can help with, and that's maybe in an endowment or some other mechanism. So I would like that grant writer to have those sorts of conversations, because in a lot of ways he or she will be helping you fundraise, developing a fundraising arm. So I want to say that before I forget. I wrote a ton of notes, and so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Sanchez.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for your comments, and I think they're all well taken. And so we'll have to figure out, like you said, maybe how we can implement some of those things and updates within here with the board, so we're all aware of some of those. And I appreciate Ms. De Leon even providing some of the updates on earlier during the JPA and some of the other discussions as well. So thank you for that. Yep. Are there any other comments from the board? Ms. De Leon.
So sorry. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to respond to Mayor Pro Tem Gondara with respect to the question on the job descriptions for the grant writers. I don't know what the discussion has been with respect to changes in duties. I know that the Human Resources Department has a couple of different options for that. If they're looking at making substantial changes to the responsibilities or qualifications, there's a position analysis questionnaire that gets filled out that's quite extensive. However, if the changes are more minimal in nature, there is a short form questionnaire that allows them to structure the language for the changes. So I do know there are a couple of options for providing that input back as to whether or not wording needs to be changed in the job description. And certainly the short form can can often be accomplished in a good time frame with respect to changes in the job description. So just for your information.
Thank you, Ms. De Leon. Are there any other comments from the board? All right, not seeing any others, so then we will, if I can get a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded, Corin.
I have a motion by Commissioner Shaldo Hernandez, a second by Councilor Corn. If I can get a roll call, please.
Board Member Macias?
Yes.
Board Member Coran?
Yes.
Board Member Shalo Hernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Gondara?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 10:41 a.m. Thank you all for joining. We'll have our next meeting August 24th back here at City Hall. Thank you.